if you want a hypoallergenic diet, you will have to use hydrolyzed protein.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the Pet Food Science Podcast, where we discuss current research and how it may apply to innovation to the pet food industry. I'm your host, Julia Pezzali, and today I have the distinct pleasure of having with me Dr. Luciano Trevizan to talk a little bit more about hydrolyzed protein and how can we utilize them in the pet food industry. Welcome, Luciano, to our podcast.
Hello, Julia. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, no problem. We are excited to having you here today to talk about hydrolyzed proteins. But before we start talking about that, would you mind sharing with our audience your background and how you ended up in your current position today?
Oh, yes. Yeah. So, I got my DVM in Brazil in 2002. Then I decided, actually, at the end of the undergraduate course, I decided to have some experience in another area. That was, I decided to have an experience in a company that was working with nutrition in general for poultry, swine, dogs, and cats. And then I think I fell in love by this area. And actually, at that time, we didn't have that much information about pet food in Brazil. Then when I finished my DVM, I decided to apply to the masters, just to have some more experience in nutrition for dogs. And then I got my master's in 2005, and I was working with amino acids balance in diets for growing dogs. So we were trying to stipulate the best relation between amino acids for growing dogs. Then in 2006, I decided to apply to the PhD, and I was my proposal was related to the fatty acids in diets for dogs. But when I was looking for some places to make the analysis that I was trying to do, I found Dr. John Bauer at Texas A&M University. So I contacted him, and I went there for 2 years. That is, we have a modality in Brazil. There's a doctorate, a sandwich doctorate. That is, we made part in Brazil and part abroad the country. So I decided to visit Dr. Bauer at that time, and there I was working with cats. Actually, it was fatty acids metabolism in diets for cats. Then I finished my PhD in 2009, and in 2009 I came back to Brazil, and I was hired by another university close to here to teach animal physiology. So I was there for about 1 year, and after that I was hired by the university that I am working right now. So, and I since 2011 I have been in the same place, working in the same place. And what I have the news is that in 2021 I was a visiting professor at Guelph University. I was working with Dr. Schubler, you know her better than me. So Katie was developing some. Actually, she was not developing. She was testing some the safety of camelina oil for horses and dogs. So I was involved in that project. Then I was there for 1 year. And we had lots of information about that. It was a great study. Then I finished that period, and I came back to Brazil, and right here, I am in Brazil right now.
Leading pet food manufacturers, renderers, and ingredient suppliers recognize that Kemin is assurance. Every day they deliver specialized expertise, innovative products, and unrivaled support through the pet food and rendering value chain. From oxidation control and food safety to palatability and nutrition, all the way through a suite of tailored services that allow you to feel supported from start to finish to ensure you're getting the most from Kemin ingredients. That's why every step of the way, Kemin Nutriassurance is your partner in pet food and rendering ingredients.
Also, man, in your lab, Luciano, you advise masters, PhD students, and also teach a lot of classes in the animal science and vet school as well, correct?
Perfect. Yeah. So, and we have some assistance for the companies, and we develop together the industry. We develop new products, and we test ingredients. We are in contact with problems that industry brings us.
Yeah, that's great. And in Brazil, it is great that we have this relationship between universities and companies and support not only the development and training of young scientists, but also the continuation of research and the support of professors and science too.
That is really important because we need the problems to work with. So here we are able to try to find solutions for new ingredients or problems that industry will bring to us.
Yeah, and sometimes we create more problems than solve problems, but
That's
that's
true.
another story.
We have we keep having the method, that the scientific method, that is the one that we believe.
Yes, yes. And when I was reading some of your last manuscripts that are published, I saw that you're working with hydrolyzed protein. So I thought it would be a great topic for us to discuss. You mentioned you evaluate many ingredients and co-products of the industry. And again, one of your published manuscripts from the last few years are with hydrolyzed protein. So to start our conversation on this scientific topic, very basic, but can you maybe define to our audience what are hydrolyzed proteins if there is a specific or set definition?
Well, I think we can define hydrolyzed protein each time of protein or ingredient that suffer some type of hydrolysis. Like we assumed that we reduced the molecular weight of those proteins, but it is really particular because depends on the size of the proteins you want. So we have ingredients that are more hydrolyzed, others not that much. So depends on the size of the peptides that you have inside of that protein.
Yeah, so basically decreasing the size of that protein to
Yeah,
smaller peptides for
that's
specific functions.
the main definition.
And is there any specific size that maybe when you're hydrolyzing them you're looking for? Really depends on the application or your methodology, or what is the purpose of the hydrolysis for a specific market or product?
That's a great question because we have some information about hydrolyzed protein for humans. So in humans nutrition, they say some papers talk about the size of protein that you can use to reduce the allergenic potential. So we know that some humans and animals, they will have some problem with, they will recognize the proteins that are in the diet as and they will have some response against those kind of protein. If you reduce the size of the protein, you you can hire the proteins from the immune system, I would say. So the immune system will not recognize those proteins. But in animal nutrition, we have some studies that when you reduce the size less than 45,000 Daltons, you reduces the responses from the animals. And human nutrition, they say around 10,000, less than 10,000. So we are trying to speculate until now what size is more efficient. But we know that animals that are allergic, they will not respond when the molecular size is less than 5,000. But on my experience, when you produce some hydrolysis, it depends on how much you hydrolyze the protein, but increases a lot the amount of protein with less than 1,000 Daltons. So that is really interesting when you apply some processing over.
Mm-hmm. And we're talking about hydrolyzing protein, break them down. I assume there are different ways you can hydrolyze protein. Maybe do you want to share a little bit of your knowledge on ways to hydrolyze protein methodologies, and can you use that for plant proteins, animal proteins, and how can we? There are different types of protein hydrolysis. So maybe if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Well, theoretically, we can hydrolyze every type of protein, vegetable or animal protein. We can hydrolyze them without any problem. But depends on the method you will use. You have different results. So we have really simple methods like thermal. So we apply that in general to produce like feathers meal. We use the same method for bovine bone and bovine meat and bone meal and chicken byproducts, for example. So they will have some impact by the processing, just the thermal processing. But we have another ways to do that with acid, with bases. When you insert bases and acids in the medium, you can have some type of hydrolysis. But we cannot control so much the processing when you use like acid or base just as a main method of hydrolysis. The most common is the enzymatic method. So you can select the enzymes that you use and you can recognize the size of the peptides that you reach after a processing. So enzymes are most delicate processing, but is more specific at the same time. And also, we have another types of hydrolysis that is based in microbes. So you can apply some bacteria in the medium, and the bacteria will have some action over the ingredient, and then you can hydrolyze the bacteria and the ingredient together. So we have another type of products. We have to keep in mind that always when we do that, we will change the original profile of amino acids from the original ingredient. So we can lose important amino acids. For example, the sulfur amino acids. It's notorious. We made a study here with some bacteria and we apply over the feathers. So it smells really bad because of the sulfur. The sulfur is coming out. And the sulfur originally comes from sulfur amino acids. So we were destroying the sulfur amino acids at that moment. So it decreases a lot the concentration of methionine and other sulfur amino acids in the ingredients. But you can have other benefits, like feathers, for example. I think is the main ingredient. I think we thought when we thinking about hydrolysis. I think feathers represents a huge challenge for us, like trying to break those complex protein in single or short peptides that will permit to the animal to absorb those amino acids, to finish the digestion and absorb those amino acids. So that is important. So we will change the ingredients when you apply some type of processing based on hydrolysis.
Yes, and you talk about a little bit about feather meal, and we know the quality of feather meal is not the greatest because it's not very accessible or digestible if you talk about this. So, for the study that you mentioned that you try to hydrolyze feather meal, did you see an improvement on digestibility or any other parameters, or is something that is challenging and it needs more work to be done?
Well, I think we step ahead a little bit, but it was a short step, I would say, because first we tried to do that in the industry. We took a bunch of enzymes and you add that before the thermal processing over the feathers. Actually, we were working at that time with feathers and blood. It was a mix between feathers and blood. That is common in Brazil industry. Sometimes some companies they used to mix both to produce the feather and blood and feather meal. So at that time we didn't have so much improvement in the ingredient, but it was around 5 to 10% of digestibility that was improved. And then we took another microbe that we we found here at the university that there's a center of technology, and they select some microbes there. And one of them had a really high potential for hydrolysis. Actually, it was extracted from the feathers and putrefaction. So it was, they leave feathers alone, and the feathers start like producing, develop new bacteria. The bacteria was growing over the feather, and they select all the bacteria from there, and they select a specific strain for use in feathers digestion. So we took that bacteria and we grow that bacteria in the lab, and we took the feathers, and then we start some digestion in vitro. And in vitro was amazingly how the bacteria digests the feather, and everything was really great. But when it took that for a big size batch, it didn't work that much. So we got some improvement, about 10% in the digestibility in dogs, but we know that we have to go much further on this.
Yes, very good example of how we have to start simple in the laboratory and see if those concepts they apply, uh, bench top, and then try to move them to the industry. And sometimes it doesn't work, and you have to go back and change that. And I assume it's expensive to hydrolyze those proteins, and not only feather meal, not very common here in the US, but we see a lot of soy protein hydrolysate and chicken meal and liver that are hydrolyzed. And I assume it's very expensive compared to the non-hydrolyzed protein source. So, what are the benefits if you think about including maybe even soy or other chicken meal that are hydrolyzed in the diets of dogs and cats? Can we include at low ratios? Is there any specific market for that, or high inclusion rates? But if it's expensive, and you mentioned some benefits already, but why do we want to produce this kind of protein?
Well, everything is a relation between price and benefits, right?
Yeah.
So if you have better benefits, you can pay more for. So yeah, it's more expensive because of the processing. That's true. We have a wet processing because it's hydrolysis, is water playing its effect in there as well. So we have to dry that ingredients, and we don't dry those ingredients in common methods. We use like spray dry, that is more expensive than other methods. Then all the processing will improve the price of the final ingredient. But we have different applications that will pay for that. The first one is the palatability. So the palatability of those ingredients is, I would say, there is nothing similar. So the ingredient is highly palatable for dogs and cats. We had some studies here, and we made some inclusion, and we know already that as much as you include, more palatable is the diet. So it's the dose response is really clear in this kind of studies. So palatability, I would say, is the main point of the hydrolyzed protein. The umami taste is really present because of the free amino acids and the short peptides. So that is one of the main focus of the utilization of hydrolyzed protein. But now we recognize that dogs and cats are allergic to the diets. So the ingredients from the diets, several ingredients. We know already that dogs, they are allergic at traditional ingredients that we use, traditional sources of protein that we use for pet food. So we have dogs that are allergic to beef, chicken, gluten. Gluten is not that common, but some animals, they will have, we can find some animals allergic too. But wheat, for example. So we have lots of different problems that you can use those ingredients for. But depends on the degree of hydrolysis that you have in the ingredient. So if you want to hypoallergenic diet, you will have to use hydrolyzed protein. But if you have an allergenic diet, you have to use a really nice hydrolyzed protein. That degree of the hydrolysis must be bigger. So you have to have more hydrolysis, or the size of the particles must be smaller. And I think the vets today, they are aware of those problems that happens in dogs, and I think we could nowadays recognize the problems related to the diets that before we didn't have that that perception. We didn't have that perception. So it seems like the diseases didn't not happen in the past, but it is not true. It's just now that we could make the diagnostic of those diseases. So if you recognize the cause, we can treat. That is the main point. And nutrition is gain lots of space on vet clinics that I'm really surprised with that, because it's really important nowadays. How can you treat dogs and cats just changing the diets or choosing the right ingredients? So I think those ingredients, they are important because of that, because we will have another way to produce diets, extruded diets, for example, with short protein chain that will not produce.
Your immune response, right? Exacerbated immune response, yeah.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, I agree that we grow a lot on the nutrition space and on the vet side as well. And but today, at least my perspective, if you had there is a pet owner, their dog's is scratching, they already think, okay, my dog's allergic to this food. So people sometimes they overestimate. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. Like, what is the percentage of dogs that are allergic to specific, I don't know, any protein source, but are allergic to a specific component of the diet? Because people are everything they want to blame on the diet. Oh, they're allergic to the diet, to the specific protein, and but maybe it's not that high of the percentage of dogs that are allergic
Yeah,
or
that's
have
true.
food sensitivity.
That's true. Yeah, I'm aware to this, and it seems like nutrition is carrying a really huge bag in the back right now.
Yeah,
Because every single dog is allergic to something, but it's not easy to recognize the allergy in dogs. We have some procedures to do. Usually we have to remove some ingredients from the diet that we suppose to be the cause of the allergic process. So that is a long study that we have to do with each patient. So we have to keep those animals out of the diet they were consuming before, in a specific diet, really restricted diet, without that ingredient that is supposed to be the cause, for 8 weeks. And in 8 weeks, we will see if the signs the symptoms will be better. And after that, we have to expose the animal to that ingredient again, and then we will see if the animal becomes sick again. So if they will start scratching, or to have some different symptoms that could be related to that ingredient. So that is not easy to do that, because you have to do for each one of the ingredients. So the diagnostic is complicated. So that is the gold standard method for detection of an ingredient that causes in the specific dog or cat an allergy. So it's difficult to do. Because of that, I believe some of the cases that vets recognize as allergic are not. We still have lots of cases. And I don't know about the statistics and how many animals are being affected by this. But I think the perception that allergic process can have the cause in the diet made the vets to think about nutrition and the allergic process.
Yeah, it's important to have that as a consideration and investigate for sure. And um, as you said, nutrition evolved, and we have to think about how can we think about not only the 90% of the dogs, but that 10% they also maybe need that assistance that we need to provide and find alternative proteins, such as hydrolyzed proteins for that case. So if I think about maybe I don't want to go in depth on clinical nutrition, but there is a dog with allergy. Why should we choose hydrolyzed protein in a diet instead of an alternative protein source that they were never exposed to? Is there any benefits, from one over another of the specific approach? There are some dogs that really need hydrolyzed protein, or um, we can test an alternative protein source that they never consumed.
Wow, that's a great question because some of dogs and cats they are not allergic; they are just sensitive to some ingredients in the formula. And fortunately, today we have different sources of protein. So we have diets with a huge variation between ingredients and sources of protein. We have like frog protein, we have like crocodile protein, and duck protein in diets. So we have a huge options in the market. So we can use those diets to make the diagnostic, for example. So we can replace the diet that the animal was using before for that diet, for one of those diets, and see what happened. So that is one of the options. But when you have an animal that is allergic, the only thing that will take out of the allergy will have something really special, a diet really special, that do not contain that ingredient. And even similar proteins. So
Hmm.
we have some dogs that cannot have any contact with diets that contains poultry byproducts, meal, for example, because they are allergic. And sometimes they are allergic to duck protein, for example, because it like poultry and duck is kind of similar. So we have to take this in consideration. But of course, I think we have other options. We have sensitive animals that you can treat in another way, and you have allergic patients that you have to have hydrolyzed diet.
Yes, no, very, very good point. And so I don't stay on the track of this clinical nutrition. When you think about hydrolyzed protein as well, smaller peptides, is that going to affect maybe the digestion process? Or there are some people many years ago said it may lead to diarrhea or even the digestive physiology. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, we had some studies in the lab, and we were trying to challenge the dogs with high inclusion of hydrolyzed protein in the diet. We reached 32% of hydrolyzed protein in the diet. And what we noticed in those studies that we had was really improves the amount of water in the feces. But the score is still under the acceptable level. But it's notorious that some more water will be kept in the feces. So if you reduce the amount, the content of dry matter increases in the feces. If you reduce the amount of hydrolyzed protein. But in case of diets, if you have a diet, hydrolyzed diet, what do you have? What do you want? You have really digestible amino acids, so we don't need to include high concentration of protein in diets because you can have the essential amino acids, so you can have some complementation using like purified amino acids, and then you reduce the amount of hydrolyzed protein that you include in the diet, and it will be enough to control the fecal score.
Yeah, yeah, there's so many, I think many years ago, people were very more skeptical about including high amounts of hydrolyzed protein and would lead to um, diarrhea or stuff.
I was in the beginning. That was my first point, because I said I don't know if dogs will really eat like protein at that hydrolyzed protein at that level, because 32% is a lot. And I thought if we had some problem in the feces score, I would see, but we couldn't see that huge problem. But yeah, we also tested in cats. So we did the same study that we did in dogs. We made in cats. So in the cats it's the same. So when we increase a lot the amount of hydrolyzed protein, improves the amount of water in the feces. But it was under the acceptable score for fecal score.
And just to clarify, Luciano, when you talk about hydrolyzed protein, what kind of hydrolyzed protein was the one that you were evaluating in those studies? Chicken or liver or?
It was a liver. It was a liver, hydrolyzed liver from chicken liver, hydrolyzed.
Okay. Yeah, we talk a little bit about palatability and how those animal digests that they call here are very improve palatability of the diet. And I think maybe the plant, I may be wrong, but the plant hydrolyzed proteins are not that palatable if you compare to the animal hydrolyzed protein. So hydrolyzed soy maybe not be as palatable as other types of hydrolyzed protein. But yeah, just another comment. And you said you include those hydrolyzed protein. In this case, was an animal hydrolyzed protein at high levels. Do you think is there any other health benefits or potential health benefits? Some people talk about bioactive compounds that are produced or maybe produced during the hydrolysis. So, do you have any comments on that, or I don't know if you evaluated any other parameters, but even looking at the literature, is there any potential to use hydrolyzed proteins not only for food sensitivity, but for other outcomes that is going to improve animal health or specific conditions?
Well, we didn't measure that, but small peptides can be active, so they can play some role over the cells signaling. So it was something that was causing some expectation over us. We didn't know what was going to happen to the animals. Because of that, we measured all the parameters, hematological, biochemistry, and hormonal parameters in dogs to see what's going to happen and if it had some influence over the animal's health. But in dogs, we didn't see any. We didn't looking for. We were not looking for those peptides at that time, and even the effects of those peptides. But we didn't notice any different reaction from the animals during the period that we were feeding dogs exclusively with these diets. But maybe we will have some peptides that will have a specific activity. That is important because in an enzymatic processing, we can select the size of protein that we want. And even after the processing, we can submit the hydrolyzed to some filtration. And after the filtration, we can have just the molecular size that we want. That's going to be one of the utilities that we can give to these methods and this kind of proteins. But also, we were thinking about the patients with exocrine pancreatite. And when the animal doesn't have all the skills to digest the protein to make the absorption. Digestion is a complex processing, but some animals, they will lack some enzymes for some reasons, for different reasons. They will lose some enzymes. In this case, I would say some intestinal problem or even pancreatitis that will compromise the capacity of the dog to digest and then absorb the amino acids. So in this case, maybe a hydrolyzed protein will have some benefits.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of room to explore in future research looking for those bioactive peptides. I know people have been looking in other animal models and in even humans as well, trying to find some bioactive peptides in those protein hydrolysates that can benefit immune system or even skin and coat health. And we still have some room to explore that and in the pet food industry to bring more value to those ingredients that are very expensive as well. So can we find other market or add more value that is beyond the traditional one that people are more used to? And when you process those diets, Luciano, with hydrolyzed, in this case, chicken liver, I think, uh, did you see, or I don't know if you look at processing, if you replace 100%, the chicken meal with the hydrolyzed chicken, does it change the kilo quality or how you're going to make the diet?
Yeah, that was quite difficult to do. Those diets, especially those diets when we made a greater inclusion. So when we include a high amount of hydrolyzed protein, the viscosity of the dough increases a lot. So it's really difficult to make the kibbles. So even for the transporters and the screws and the extruder and the
Mm-hmm.
conditioner, it's so difficult to do those products. So we had to work a lot to make the diet with 40% of protein. That took 32% of hydrolyzed protein. But finally, we got some food to test in animals. But I think we made it around 2 tons to get 150 kilos of diet with good quality to make the trial, to perform the trial. And it was really difficult to set the extruder for this kind of, but it's a functional protein. So will help in some stages on the extrusion, but you have to compensate with other ingredients. But we didn't measure parameters in the extruder. We were a lot. We were worried to make the diets at that time, so we had lots of expectations on when we were doing. And usually, I go to the plant to follow the extrusion, and I was really I was concerned about the diets if the people there could make the diets or not. So that was, but finally we got to do all the diets.
Yeah, when you're testing or evaluating a new ingredient or higher inclusion rates, we never know how that's going to change the process. And I think we also evolved not only on nutrition on dogs and cats, but also in processing. Today, what we can do with a single screw extruder is amazing. And I think what was driven that is mostly industry requests and consumer requests for these new diets. And we had to evolve on the processing part as well, not only on the nutrition.
That's true. And people working besides the extruder, they are amazing because they know how
Yeah.
that big stuff works, and they can set different vapor or water inclusion and the the how the extruder will speed, and they can make the diets. But I was impressed with people there, so they could do.
Yeah, I think one of the first things that draw my attention to pet food when I was in undergrad was how was producing pet food and is how quick changes you change your parameter 1% a little bit more and you can really see the changes in the kibble quality. But yeah, out of topic, but I wanted to make that comment because it fascinates me how you really changes kibble quality in like 3 seconds, 2 seconds, you have a totally different product and that's going to affect, palatability, maybe digestibility, and there are many things we can consider on pet food production.
Totally, totally agree.
At Allura Pets, our commitment to biotechnological innovations empowers you to craft superior products that redefine pet wellness standards. Whether enhancing nutrient bioavailability, promoting gut health, or boosting immunity, our science-backed solutions give your formulations a competitive edge in the pet market. Trust Allura Pets to deliver scientifically proven ingredients that elevate your portfolio to new heights. Visit us at www.allura.bio/pets to learn more.
So thank you very much, Luciano, for joining us today and talk about protein, in this case, hydrolyzed protein. I think there are many rooms to bring you back. Maybe talk about lipids or other things you work in your master's and PhD and doing your laboratory over these years. And before I let you go for this time, I want to ask you some other questions that are not related to hydrolyzed protein or not much related to science. And the first one, you said that you've been working academia and helping the pet food industry to support product development. And what do you like the most about working with the pet food industry or being in this area of companion animal nutrition?
Oh, first of all, the contact with different people and different knowledge. So we don't work just with vets, just with agronomists or animal science. We work with different professions. So that makes me so excited because we learn a lot. And I think the other thing is we are in a market and research that depends one to the other. So the market needs research and research needs the market. So we are exchanging information all the time, and the volume of information is huge because each day we have another ingredient. So the industry produces lots of ingredients, and the partition of the grains will generate more byproducts or extra products. I don't know if this name byproducts is uh, good for those products because sometimes we think about the ingredients. Some ingredients we don't eat because of what we don't eat because don't seems like we must ingest them, but they have nutrients in there. So sometimes we use those ingredients and we call them byproducts, and we will use for animals because the animals will not have that decision. So, but I mean, there's lots of byproducts or different ingredients each day, and the industry is producing them. So if they start the partition, like in the past, they start the partition of the soybean. So they have the oil, they have the the, the soybean protein, and after that we change it a lot because you have another type of protein from the soy is really purified, and you have hydrolyzed protein, and you have different types of ingredients that comes out from the same ingredient, and it will happen with different ingredients with time, and always will have to research over the animals to see how the animals will digest, will absorb, and will have some benefits from those ingredients. And everything is related to the price. So we have to consider the price as well. So it's price, nutrition, and disponibility of the ingredient. Everything is playing in the same time. So we will have to take decisions on those ingredients and to check if those ingredients will have some benefits or extra benefits, and it will change the price and will change the utilization in the diets, and can cause some huge benefits to the animals and also for the humans, because as much as you increase the price and the ingredient, so then you can add the value to the ingredient. So that is important to take in consideration. And I think that is the most beautiful aspects of the nutrition nowadays.
Yeah, improving co-products, and something that I think is funny as well is in Brazil we go crazy for chicken hearts in our barbecue, and here in the US they don't eat it. So cheap, and people I see they giving that to dogs like how this, no, don't do it this. Give it to me. So I don't know if you're listening to this podcast, you never try chicken hearts, go to a Brazilian barbecue place and you should try it, and don't give to your dogs, eat yourself, or don't think that is a as a only dog food is very tasty. And my last question, Luciano, is related to success. Sometimes when I have guests here, I usually ask them what are some traits of successful people that you know that you can share with us. For you, I'm going to change the question is what is success for you? You know, success is something that it changes between one person to another. So what is for you, what is success, what that means for your career or even for your life, work life balance and everything?
Great question. Makes me think right now. But I think if I had some definition for success in the past, I would say that you have to reach the target. You know, how fast you reach the target and how specific you are to reach the target. But it was in the past. Nowadays, I changed my mind, and I don't think that is success anymore. I think success is you reach the success when you can produce some benefit to the others. So you have to produce something to the others. You have to cause some benefit to the others, to the animals or to the humans. You have to have some impact over the others, and that impact must be positive. I think that is my actual definition. I don't know if it will change in the future, but that is my actual definition.
Yeah, I agree with you. And as you said, we change over time as well, and what we define as success and our goals in life and priorities change. So I hope mine are aligned to yours as well. So again, thank you, Luciano, for joining us today, and I hope we have you back next time.
Thank you, Julia. That was a pleasant experience. Thank you so much.